So I just want to give a little background. I want to talk about the Countywide Strategic Safe Routes to School Plan that is coming up. That is commencing at this time, and I wanted to make sure the task force, school principals and districts were aware of this process and who's leading it and what the outcomes of it are going to be. For those of you who don't know, the Safe Routes to School program in Sonoma County is actually a program of the Sonoma County Transportation Authority and the Regional Climate Protection Authority, RCPA. SCTA collaborates with cities in the county to maintain and improve our transportation network and prioritize and coordinate and maximize funds for planning and project development and grant administration. RCPA coordinates climate protection activities countywide, including advocacy and research. Leads a coalition to mobilize regional climate action in Sonoma County. Those two agencies, really SCTA at this time, holds the Safe Routes to School program, and myself, the Bicycle Coalition, we are the consultant who implements programming at schools countywide. So there is a process, the SCTA, so our existing program, this is just sort of a snapshot of our existing program, which is active mobility, education, and encouragement, which I'll talk a little bit more about as we get into it. Data collection, so the GIS maps that we do here in the corner, and getting data from schools about how the students are traveling to the schools, and also doing site assessments to determine what the barriers are to walking and bicycling, and you know, what potential improvements are happening. So that's our existing program. The countywide plan is going to go into a whole process by where our existing program is looked at, and also for expansion, and also assessing, prioritizing schools. So it's got a number of components, and in order, in order of actually when it's happening, for the most part, they're going to be doing a prioritization of the countywide schools countywide. So just what that means is that state and federal grant programs increasingly prioritize applications for infrastructure that incorporate things like collision score ratings, other metrics like disadvantaged communities, strong public support for active transportation, severity of collisions near schools, detailed assessments of student proximity to schools, and more. So the plan is to have a comprehensive data-driven school prioritization analysis based on those critical factors, and to ensure that this process is rigorous and reflective of the diverse needs of school communities. So they're going to be going through a process of ranking all the schools in the county for that. They're also going to be working on a countermeasure toolbox. Alexander actually is going to show you a little bit of an example of what that looks like when he presents, but that's going to be a toolbox that we can all look at, that educating everybody on what types of safety improvements are potential solutions for safer travel, and tailored to the needs of Sonoma County. So like things like crosswalk enhancements, bike lanes, other traffic calming measures. It'll be referencing best practices from local, regional, and state and national programs. Some best practices probably from Santa Rosa or Petaluma will be looked at. And so that toolbox will be available for school districts and schools to understand what types of measures can be implemented. There will also be programmatic recommendations, education and encouragement, recommendations for expansion, listening sessions, so lessons learned, success stories, existing safe routes efforts. That's where like this task force comes in to some extent, and our relationships with principals. I really do, one of my goals with this task force was to be able to get feedback from principals about their priorities and their successes, and so that we could utilize that as we move forward with planning for the countywide program. They are actually focusing on the city of Healdsburg. They're actually assessing every school in Healdsburg and are going to develop a Healdsburg Safe Routes to School plan for all the schools in Healdsburg. There's going to be a county task force bringing together stakeholders countywide to sort of inform this process. So hopefully there'll be representatives from school districts and from schools and from the city and elected officials and all kinds of, all the different areas, so that we can really be looking at what the needs are for the county in terms of safe routes, not just this program that we run, but just like holistically. And then there will be a process by where 10, in the prioritization analysis, 10 schools will be selected to have site assessments and infrastructure improvement plans. And those may or may not be in Santa Rosa, but there will be 10 schools that will be, from that prioritization list that will have a full assessment done and have like concept plans done for, shovel ready, projects for grant applications to go into. And then ultimately there will be an entire, a county safe routes to school plan that will come out of this. So I wanted to make sure everybody was aware that this is going to be happening, that it's actually started. We're actually working with Healdsburg now, and then the listening sessions will be happening. The project task force probably will be next year, but keep your eye open for those communications. I really hope that the school districts are engaged in this process. I think it's really important that school voices be heard as we develop those priorities, especially for the education and encouragement programming. So I wanted to make sure you're all aware of that. And this is just sort of a little flow chart of, what is the process. The green are sort of what we're already doing, and like the blue is like what is going to be coming out of this process. So back to the site assessments, we are doing those already, like I said, and in the city of Santa Rosa, we have really worked hard since 2023 to methodically assess sites for the barriers to walking and bicycling to school. And Alexander developed a prioritization process. We actually started the audits before we developed. So the first 3 schools on the list were audited before we had a prioritization list. And then we were like, we need to do a prioritization list. So from there, from Lincoln on, we've gone in order of the prioritization that the city of Santa Rosa, Alexander and Torina have established, which may end up getting modified based on like some of the new factors that the county is looking at. But for right now, this is our list for this year. I have a full list that I will post as an addendum to the presentation that will be on the task force website. So the current full list is available. And these are the schools that we've audited so far and will be auditing in this school year. So the only one that's sort of like in flux is Santa Rosa Middle School. We're postponing that audit until after school consolidation, and depending on what happens with that site, it may make more sense to wait until next, if that site remains open and, like other school, it's some kind of combined, it may make sense to wait until next year when we see where the students are coming from to assess that site. So this is what it's looking like. But again, there are more schools on the list. Every school in the city of Santa Rosa is on there. There are schools in the Piner-Olivet school district that are on the list probably even next year. I can't remember. I have to look at the list for next year. But I will post that. And again, it may change because of the county prioritization process, but it probably, I'm assuming the county will also be looking at what the city already did when we're going through that list. So I wanted to just highlight which schools are enrolled in the program this year in the city of Santa Rosa. I shared this slide, I think in October as well, but I wanted to repeat it. By enrolled, that means that these are sites that are implementing safe routes to school encouragement programming, and they're also receiving education services from us. So these schools are the schools that are engaged in the program this year in the city of Santa Rosa. We had a couple of new schools, or at least one, Roseland Elementary joined us this year. Burbank Elementary, I think they were new last year, but this year, yeah, they're doing a little bit more this year. So these are the schools that are enrolled, and just just a brief sort of like overview of the site services. Like if you're an enrolled site, we're doing an address map for you. We're doing tallies at your site. We're getting hand raise counts to find out how many kids are walking and biking. There's going to be participation in walk and roll to school events. We're going to do education at your site. So depending on the site, it could be 2nd grade pedestrian safety, 4th grade bike lessons, 5th grade lessons, 4th grade bike rodeo. If you're a middle school, it could be middle school drive your bike lessons or youth engagement or rides. We also will do on-bike education and outreach in the community, in and around those sites, and then also we'll do safe routes presentations with the school staff and with parents, school board, city council, and then we will also have engineering and enforcement support. And again, the sites enrolled may not be assessed that year because that's a different prioritization list, but those are really all the states on this list are pretty much receiving all of this. Just in terms of the encouragement, I just really want to quickly let you know what's going on with our encouragement programming, because this is something that whether you're enrolled in the program or not, you could do or share. So in February, we have a walk and roll for our Hearts Month, and we have an art contest that we share countywide. Again, you do not have to be enrolled to share this in your district or in your school and have students participate. They can make art about why they love to walk and roll, and we produce a calendar. We have 15 winners, and they get gift cards. And that's a previous year's calendar. So and it's again, these challenges that we do every month are just a way to engage students and thinking about the benefits of walking and biking to school, and also a way to make it equitable, because not every student can walk and roll to school, but they may be able to walk and roll in their neighborhood, and get some to think about that. So then, and this is the art contest flyer that can go out again in any school, any district, regardless of enrollment. And then in March, we'll have a March of the Penguins month. A lot of schools will do a March walk roll day on the first Wednesday of the month. We're encouraging students to walk as many miles as they can, but also observe birds, and read about birds and penguins, and watch documentaries about birds and penguins, and try to get to Antarctica. And they can get miles from doing all those things. Every mile they walk is 500 penguin miles. And so we're encouraging schools to try to get to Antarctica and have students track their miles, and they can track their miles walking and biking to school. They can track their miles exercising around the blacktop. They can track their miles walking to the grocery store. These are teachers can do it with their students as a class project, where they're tracking miles as a class and turning it as a teacher. So we're just trying to get kids to walk during the month of March. And then in April, we Green Transportation Month. We're encouraging schools to hold a Green Transportation Walk Roll Day, where they encourage walking, biking, carpooling, or taking the bus. We're encouraging the schools to give out this challenge sheet on their walk roll day and have the kids check which one they did that day, and then pick at least one more mode to do that month, and maybe even all 4 modes to try that month. And think about the benefits of each of those modes. So we really are encouraging not just walking and biking, but also transit, carpool, anything that gets families out of their single family vehicles. And then finally, May is Bike to School Month, and we have Bike to School Day in May. We do ask schools to register for this event. Again, you do not have to be enrolled in the county program to register for this event. You can just celebrate this particular event, and if you do, we'll give you posters, we'll give you some swag. And I encourage districts to share this with their schools, and encourage schools to hold a Bike to School Day, which is also a walk and roll to school day, not just biking, but we highlight bikes on this day. And we also, it's an opportunity to get out safety information about bicycling, and we have a bunch of PSA videos and cool safety information about how to be safe when biking, including this little Instagram sort of like newsletter square that can be communicated. That's what's happening this spring. And again, enrolled schools will be doing many, if not all of these promotions, but if you're not enrolled, then you can still participate. And then we have another task force meeting in June. I wanted to get feedback if I had enough people here on the timing of it, 10 a.m. or noon, or later in the day. It's after school gets out. And I don't know if I'll get that feedback today, but we will certainly go back out to our partners and find out what the best time of day will be for the June task force meeting. So thank you so much. I'm gonna exit. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'll stop there, and we'll hand it over to Alexander. Does anybody have any questions at this point or comments about And we have some new people who joined us. Great, thank you. Would you like to introduce yourself, Katheryne and Olga?
Sure, I'll introduce myself. I'm Katheryne Stoural, the principal of Monroe Elementary, and we do participate in the Safe Routes to School program. We have a great time doing our, on the trimesters, we participate in the walking school bus, and we do have students who will bike to school those days. We do, I don't want to say every month, a walk in and ride to school, but we do participate on the dates that you guys have selected, those dates that are important. Yeah, it's great. We have a bike rodeo. We do all the things.
Thanks for being here. And then
Thank
Olga.
you. And I'm having a hard time hearing you, and I think it's just my.
Sorry, you should speak up. Olga, would you like to introduce yourself too?
Hi there. I'm Olga. I'm the principal at Jack London Elementary School, and I'm really interested in the future being able to ride our bikes to school. So that's why I'm here. But thank you for putting on all the events.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Alexander. Share his presentation.
Hi, Alexander Oceguera, active transportation planner for the city of Santa Rosa, and I have an active transportation update for the task force meeting. You want to go to the next slide? So what are we working towards? We're working towards slower speeds and safer streets in our community. Go to the next slide, please. So the transfer of speed, like when we're thinking of speed's a determinant for the severity of a crash. So if you think of somebody that's getting into a collision on a street, it's usually the faster you're going, the more impact there is, and that creates a more severe collision. We're trying to reduce that through engineering controls and working with you all to create solutions. So the higher the speeds, the more severe the crash. Just a little bit of data. A study found that an impact at the speed of 30 miles an hour had the risk of fatality of 20%, whereas while it jumps up to 46% at 40 miles per hour, and then 75% at 50 miles an hour, and then 92% at 60 miles an hour. So you can see that the speed of an impact definitely has an effect on how severe a collision is. Next slide, please. So next I'm going to talk about engineering controls, and engineering controls are a way for us to design the roadway in a way that slows speeds down and hopefully makes the streets safer for everybody walking and biking, but also for people in cars as well. You go to the next slide. So some of the tools in our toolbox that we have curb extensions. So like if you think about the kids, this shortens the distance that a kid has to go across the street. You see the picture here, you have these big bulb outs, they're called, or curb extensions with delineators. It's marked out. It makes that space going across the street where vehicles are present a lot shorter. So it creates slower speeds, and it also makes it so that drivers aren't making sweeping turns as most of our streets are designed for today. Mm-hmm. So it's a great, easy, cheap, like effective way to try to minimize collisions and slow the speeds down of a collision if it were to happen. Next slide. Another tool in our toolbox is protected bike lanes. So protected bike lanes, what they can do is they also create this separation using delineators and they can go all the way to the intersection. When they do, that also poses that same benefit of shortening the crossing distance across the crosswalk that people are going to be in a travel lane. This is something that we're going to try to implement in more places. So it also gives more space for kids if they're riding their bike on the roadway, and the less likelihood of a bicycle collision. It slows speeds down as well, so people see something in the roadway and they automatically start to slow down because they don't necessarily know how to maneuver around it at first, and it creates this visual thing that shortens or makes the roadway seem smaller as well. And so that narrowing of the roadway also, makes a driver feel like they're in a tighter space and has been proven to slow speeds down. So moving on to flashing light at a crosswalk. These are called RRFBs, so rectangular rapid flashing beacons. But to make it a little simpler, I just call them flashing lights at crosswalks. So this gives a warning to drivers that a person is crossing the street, and it also helps with vehicles, 2 to 3 vehicles back, and helping prevent potential rear end collisions. Obviously when you're hitting the button, people aren't supposed to just walk out. You need to wait and see for people to stop first. This is just a warning light. It's not a stop control of any kind. So there is that thought that you have to make sure you know how to use it right as well. So a lot of times we see people hit the button and then they go right out. So if you can inform your students that they have to wait till a car stops before they go, that would be a great idea. Next slide. So what are we doing? We're out there doing these walking audits with schools throughout the city. And if you want to go to the next slide, we're doing the easy fixes at first. So that would be red curb to daylight and intersection. So these are more engineering controls that can help. There's a new law that was passed that we have to daylight with a red curb. You see the picture on the right, 20 feet from an intersection, the approach side to an intersection. So that helps with visibility of students crossing the street or any pedestrian crossing the street, so that cars can see them and they're more visible. The other thing we have is a leading pedestrian interval. And so that gives, if you look at the picture on the left, the stop red light is still on at the signalized intersection, but it gives the opportunity for somebody to walk across the street, to get out ahead of that light as it turns to green. This is very beneficial in places, and it gets you established in the crosswalk before people actually start to drive through the intersection. Next slide. So some of the more long-term fixes would be something like this intersection where it's more of a protected intersection. This has delineators and it's colorful. Someday we might be able to get to this. But these are more expensive improvements that cost a little bit more money and a little bit more planning than the easy daylighting and LPI type stuff. So these also shorten the crossing distance for kids crossing the street. They make, in turn, people make sharper turns around the corners or tighter turns, so it slows speeds down as well. The other long-term fixes are protected bike lanes and also those RRFBs or flashing crosswalk lights. Next slide, please. So really, this is a good forum for us to have outreach. We need your help. We need your input. And as I go through my next slide, you'll see that the walking audits have been impactful and helpful for us to make planning and engineering decisions from the city side of things as we repave our roadways. We do slurry seals to our roadways where there's an opportunity to do like more long-term improvement fixes. It's been very helpful. Next slide, please. So, yeah, just going back to, we're just trying to identify barriers to walking and biking, and these walking audits are very helpful in that. So the more parents that can be involved, even better. Even students, especially in the middle school to high school ages, are very helpful. We had a middle school student come to Comstock, and they told us about the bus stop and where they crossed. And it was definitely helped inform our decisions on where we should put certain infrastructure improvements. Next slide. So right here, we have a slide of Comstock Middle School. And so there's certain locations, and this isn't everything from the walking audit, but I just wanted to bring up some points. So one thing that happened was at the bus stop headed eastbound, there was a sidewalk uplift. If nobody tells the city about it, there's no way we can fix it. We don't know what the issue's there. You know, our sphere of influence and area that we have to cover is just so vast that it's hard to be out there seeing everything that's an issue potentially that's happening out there. So, you know, you all are our eyes and ears, and it's definitely beneficial to have input. So the student told us about that, or I think we were just walking around the school, that area, because that's one of the areas where kids get picked up and dropped off by the bus. And so that has been repaired. There is a crosswalk at Apache there in Steel Lane. And so that crosswalk, there's actually two crosswalks there. So we were under the impression that the one to the east was the one that would be more used by kids. It's a shorter crossing distance. But in fact, we went out there, the crossing guard was there. The student informed us that no, everybody uses the one to the west. So that informed our decision to add an RRFB. And we're actually going to have a pavement project that goes along Steel Lane. And through that pavement project, we are going to be adding an RRFB. You know, so that's the flashing light that helps notify people that somebody's crossing. It's a warning light. So another thing that we're doing, and was partially informed by this process, was we did walk down Steel Lane a ways, and the crossing at Apple Valley Lane always seems to be an issue. We previously had put these in roadway signs that kind of notify people of pedestrians. I don't believe those are that effective, and they tend to get run over, so it becomes a maintenance issue. So we're going to be installing a stop control there. So the stop control, even though, yeah, it'll be a benefit to the area, and that's happening as well through our pavement maintenance project that we're going to be having going through that area. So another thing that came up was a crossing. A lot of the kids came from the bus stop area, crossed the street at Apache, and then would go through the parking lot and cross. This is something it's more out of the city's control, and it's you know, Santa Rosa City Schools, if they wanted to try to implement something, and then working with parks to potentially have, you know, ramps there and a crosswalk could be helpful. So not everything that I'm going to be going through is something that we've completed or going to be able to do, and it might be something that was just brought up during those during the walking audit. Next slide, please. So at Taylor Mountain, you know, this is a great campus. You think it'd be very walkable. There are plenty of parents that do come and walk there. There's a neighborhood, but you know, there's some issues on Santa Rosa Avenue. The speeds are high, and you know, like it tends to be a deterrent for parents to walking along Santa Rosa Avenue. So one of the things that we did do recently was lower the speeds, but only from Bellevue north on Santa Rosa Avenue. So everything north of Bellevue on Santa Rosa Avenue, the speed limit has been changed and lowered. And hopefully that helps people feel more comfortable. The other thing to that is we're trying to design, you know, the roadway to better accommodate folks and walking and biking. So at Bellevue and Santa Rosa Avenue, we are working towards a process of installing a signal And at that signal, we're gonna have a protected intersection. So like I said before, you know, kind of having those curb extensions around the corners to help shorten the crossing distance, because it's a very wide space to cross there. And that was also another deterrent for parents crossing the street, is Santa Rosa Avenue so long and far and the speeds are so high that it worries them to cross the street and walk across there. So, you know, another thing that we've done through our planning is we have an active transportation plan update that we're doing. And, you know, one of the things that we're able to do is set certain streets or streets throughout the city as separated bike lanes. And Santa Rosa Avenue, through being informed with the walking audit, has become a place where we would install you know, separated bike lanes, class 4 bike lanes with the protections. Go on to the next slide, please.
I see that Katheryne has her hand up.
Okay.
Did you have a question, Katheryne? That was.
Actually, I just wanted to say thank you for the city putting in the bus shelter on Steel Lane right at Comstock. And I'm not sure if you mentioned that, because again, I'm having a hard time with my audio, but that was wonderful. And that was through this partnership. So if you didn't highlight it, we appreciate it.
Thank you for the update. So I haven't been out there in a while, so I wouldn't have known that that was installed, but that's awesome.
And that came
Yeah,
out-
I believe it went in December. Is that?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so thank you.
So another campus we went to is Montgomery High School, and there were certain things on Cypress Way. There was literally next to a crosswalk, their cars were parked, like approach side to a crosswalk. So we are having our civil engineering technicians add red curb to that and daylight that so that people crossing the street are more visible. In the future, through our SS4A grant, Cypress and Hohen. So right as you go out from Hohen Avenue and Hohen frontage as they intersect, we're going to be looking at improving that intersection with potentially protected intersections, curb extensions, things of that nature. So we have a grant. So this is helping inform that as well. In other places all along Hammond, we are going to be daylighting the crosswalks. So again, putting that red curb in to help folks be more visible crossing the street, because that was something that was determined in the Montgomery High School walking audit. And yeah, also our technicians are going to be working on implementing those. Next slide, please.
Alexandra, could you quickly explain SS4A, because I think some people.
Okay, SS4A is a Safe Streets for All grant, and in our portion of the grant, we are going to be emphasizing the intersections that are high injury network. So that's where you know, so through that we'll be doing these protected intersections, curb extensions, things of that nature, trying out different materials. Through the grant, their emphasis was on like trying out different materials and seeing things that work and don't work. So it could be in flux, where we paint something a certain way and then take it away if, say, it's getting hit too much, or if it's not providing that extra protection that people are hoping for. We might install something more stable. Yeah, so it's hopefully we get the money, though. I don't know if things are going to be changing soon, but
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful still. So I'm planning to help implement that project, and folks in my division are very excited to move that project forward. So now I'll be talking about the Luther Burbank Elementary walking on it, and you know, just some simple things like there's a lot of issues with folks hanging out underneath the freeway there, and there's a good portion of students living on the west side of town. So getting underneath the freeway and then going to Luther Burbank Elementary, which is on the east side of the freeway, was a big deterrent for kids walking to school. So we've been trying to work and coordinate with these folks that have organized Friends of the Prince Memorial Greenway. They're the folks that go out there and try to clean up and make it nicer for the Greenway, think of ways to get more people out there, and create a community space. And so looking for any way to engage. So I went to one of their meetings, and hopefully we'll be able to establish a walking school bus. So like a walking school bus is something where you meet up with folks at a designated spot that are students going to a school, and then you walk together, and it's kind of like a community building thing, but it also gets folks to feel safer walking to school as well. So hopefully that works out, and it's all dependent, right, on what happens with the schools, but either way, I think we'll have some potential to do some of that work this year before things change potentially. So other things that came out of the walking audit and informed our active transportation plan was the class 4 separated bike lanes. There's the potential for installing those, and it's a proposed thing in that planning document on Santa Rosa Avenue. Next slide. So
A question about Luther Burbank. I know that in the past there had been the walking overpass, right? You would spiral up, go over the freeway and come down, and that was removed. I see Christina, you're nodding. I'm just curious if there's any conversation of replacing that or putting it back in. I don't remember exactly when it came out. It may have been with the installation of the Greenway. They felt that that was sufficient access. Just curious if the city is exploring that. I know that's a, potential multi-million-dollar public works project, but.
Yeah, we are not, especially since there is access from Wright going underneath the freeway instead of going over it. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was removed, was because there was access now underneath the freeway to get, from one side of the freeway to the other.
Thank you.
So moving on to the R.L. Stevens walking audit, just again, with the SS4A grant, we're gonna hopefully be able to improve that Stony Point and Giffen intersection. One of the things that came out of the walking audit was we had installed a flashing yellow arrow signal at that intersection, and parents, and representatives from that school were worried about people turning on that into students, parents, people crossing the street. So during school hours, we changed that to be protected, it's called. So how when you get the green arrow only, so that will only happen during the school hours. And then during off school hours, we'll let it go back to being the flashing yellow arrow that gives, drivers the potential to yield and then turn. So I think that was a great thing that came out of this walking audit, because it definitely makes people feel safer crossing the street. Another thing that we, I think was just installed was the daylighting of the intersection at Campbell and Duane, and there was just cars parked close to the intersection there, and it made it so that, students, people walking across the street at the crosswalk weren't as visible. Go to the next slide. So at Slater Middle School, another thing that came out was daylighting the crossing there. Something that would potentially happen in the future through our long-term improvements was making the crosswalk there better. So adding some sort of protection, maybe curb extensions, things of that nature, a protected bike lane at that crossing to get people across there, being able to cross a shorter distance as well. Next slide. So these are just some references. So if you see an issue, like say that curb uplift at the bus stop, right? If you all see issues out in the roadway that you think are easy fixes that we could do, you go to My Santa Rosa, link to the websites there. And there you can report things, and then it'll go to our streets crews, and then they'll in turn, or our Parks Department, and they'll in turn come out. And
I have the app.
and yeah, and help make that improvement. And then we also have our active transportation website. And on that, we have a map of the improvements that we're planning to make, and then also things that have been done recently. It also shows the different classifications for the bike lanes as well, so that you can know where places are that might be protected and might be more comfortable for you to ride on as well. And then also we have our active transportation plan. So that is a place that we are, you're able to go to and see what the update is on our active transportation plan. We're currently in the review process internally, but we'll have the draft out for public review here shortly. And then I also listed my email address as well.
And this presentation will be posted to the Safe Routes Santa Rosa Task Force page, and these links will be active in it in PDF. So if you wanted to reference that later on down the line. I wanted to mention also, Alexander, that I met with the principal at Helen Lehman, one of the sites we audited, and she mentioned that you all had put in a stop sign crosswalk in front of this school, which hadn't been there, and she said that it has made a huge difference in safety for the students. Like, cars are stopping.
Yeah.
It's just like, she's just like, thank you. I want to thank you for that. She's not here today, but she wanted to make sure that I mentioned that in today's meeting. So that was
Christina,
really
could
great
you say who
improvement.
that was from?
It was Christina Senia.
Senna.
Senna,
Mhm.
from Helen Lehman.
From
Elementary
Helen
School.
Lehman. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Stop sign in front of the crosswalk.
Awesome.
I also just had a question regarding the the Prince Memorial Greenway for summer. So I know that, obviously, like, encouraging walking, encouraging in partnership with Prince Memorial Greenway, getting more people on the trail will help. But like, is there with law enforcement, is like, I'm sure that there is, enforcement along the Greenway, but is there a way to sort of maybe prioritize that area between Olive Park and the school? Because that is like a genuine barrier. Like, when we walked there was just like a burnt tent, just like, and just even having that like some kind of daily patrol that was just like, okay, we're gonna get rid of this burnt tent. Like, it's scary for the kids to be on that little, and it's a very short section of the trail. So I was just wondering if that's something that the law enforcement could, what your
Sure. We have our downtown enforcement team that are responsible for the Prince Memorial Greenway, along with other officers if we get calls there. But I can talk to Sergeant Tim Barrett, who is in charge of our downtown enforcement team, and discuss with him that is more of a concern specifically in that area. And I can have him take his team out and go assess and move people along. One of the things that happens is they do enforcement during the day, and then when they leave, as nighttime approaches, some of our people experiencing homelessness
right.
area, because they know that the officers that are assigned that area aren't going to be there overnight. And so then they're there in the morning. It is an issue, and what they leave behind is there in the morning as the kids are coming to school. So I think their shifts start at 7. So what I can do is I can talk to Tim. He's out of the office today, but I can send him an email and ask him to prioritize that area and see if there's some way we can try to get some extra enforcement there to make it safe.
I think that'd be great if it could be like, if they were gonna do it in that area, do it between 7 and 7:30, like before the kids are coming. And then also we could communicate with you if they're doing a walk roll day, that, a special event, then maybe like making sure on that event day that there is
Yes.
happening before, so that they're not experiencing, something scary on an event day.
Yeah, absolutely. So just give me that information when that occurs, and I will send him the information, or give him the information. I see him every day, and ask if he can have his team go out there and do extra enforcement in that area.
Great.
And I'll just, for the school, say thank you for thinking about the temporarily when in time, right? So when kids are walking to school, say that 7:30 to 8 a.m. and then I believe that most days of the week that school is released at 2:20. So students would potentially be walking starting at 2:20 for about, 20, 30 minutes or so. I think Mondays is a short day.
Yeah,
I think their school's out at 1:20 on Mondays, and I might be mistaken on the bell schedule. I know that Stacy could pull up their current bell schedule.
and I have the
That would
audit
be helpful.
report, well, we just did the audit, haven't completed the report for, Burbank yet, but it has the school start time and the end time, and I'll mention that issue in it. I'll send it to you, Summer, as well, just so you have the document that. talks about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Please do, and then I can give that information to Sergeant Barrett for sure.
Wonderful.
In the interest of time, I'm going to sort of consolidate 4 and 5 and give folks the opportunity to either share, a success or a priority for their site with the safe routes programming, or share a district infrastructure or enforcement issue, any concern, any opportunity. It sounds like we lost the Piner-Olivet folks, but Ryan's here from, I'm not sure what school.
Slater.
Slater. Oh, great, Ryan, good to see you. That's right, I should have known that. I just met you a few months ago. So does anybody have any extra, anything that they would like to share about, again, either a safe routes program success at their site, a site priority for success, or an infrastructure or enforcement concern?
So Katheryne or Ryan, do you guys want to speak up, or shall I share more at the district level?
Oh, I know for Slater, we're talking about potentially having something that keeps parents from doing U-turns in front of the school. Potentially something like in front of Still Lane, where they have those thin cones that track you in and then lets you out at a certain point. I wasn't sure where those conversations went.
Thank you.
I'll just share kind of briefly, and I do see that Sarah Hadler is in the meeting. I can see her now in the corner. Hi, Sarah. We've worked with Sarah last year. We did a walking audit, and there were quite a few things that we had kind of, dog-eared. One was, new signage, cutting of trees, and I think that the city has taken care of most of those pieces. I see Sarah's nodding. And Sarah, if there's anything else that you want to jump in on, but it's nice to have this partnership because we look at things from different lenses. I would never have taken the walk with the eyes that that walking audit had us look at, and just the things that we noticed and the needs that we found. So we appreciated that. And Sarah, is there anything that you remember?
Not specifically, but I think our program at Monroe is so strong, and we work together with the walking school bus, with the bike train. I was just there at the staff meeting yesterday and did a presentation, very welcoming group, and you're just a wonderful partner. And I think our program just goes so deep at Monroe.
Thank you.
Well, and something that we shared that kind of at the beginning, before the meeting began, Santa Rosa City Schools, as many of you are probably aware, either from attending a town hall or reading the newspaper, is undergoing a dramatic transition between now and August. In that, in an effort to right-size our budget, we are considering some closures and some school consolidations. What this means is that our families and staff is currently living in a time of great uncertainty, knowing that next year our highest priority will be the exact same as this year. We will be serving all of our students with the highest quality engagement, education, and priority of safety. But the four walls of schools and the boundaries in our neighborhoods may look a little bit different. So we have invited a group of community partners and staff to begin working together. We actually are having our first meeting tomorrow morning to put together what we're calling a Rebuilding and Resilience Alliance. And this team of like-minded individuals is going to kind of set aside the traditional methodologies and naming of, I'm Montgomery, or I am Slater, or I am Monroe, and ask, we are Santa Rosa, how can we come together as a community to help support families and students and staff through this transition? One of our highest priorities is helping families whose boundaries or schools may have changed, figuring out a way that they can feel confident transitioning their children to school if their school might be new. And so we've invited Christina Panza to be part of that conversation so that we can use the experience and expertise of safe routes to school to help families feel safe as they transition through this crazy time of ours.
That's
And
wonderful.
we want SRPD to be a part of that as well, because regardless of whether we have an MOU or a program, we really appreciate all of the support that SRPD gives our families and our schools. And it's just going to be a new and crazy time, and we want the families to know they're not alone. So
It's going to mean a lot of new routes, right? And
yes.
A lot of new safe routes and creating.
Yes.
I'm glad you guys are going to be a part of that. That's great.
Well, and if a family that used to go to Monroe is now going to Lehman, we know that Lehman already had their audit. So being able to share that information with a family that is not new to our district, but maybe new to their school. And so just relying on the past work and expertise so that families know that there are options and that their children's, path to school is important to us.
And I really appreciate the Santa Rosa City School District for being so proactive and establishing an MOU with the Safer program so that we can we get data on student addresses from every school, and we can create those GIS maps for every school versus just the schools that weren't necessarily enrolled in the program, which I think hopefully was helpful and looking at for the school. And I'm sad that Piner-Olivet just left, because I would love to have that same agreement with every district, so we would be able to produce those maps every year for every school in Santa Rosa, so that we could again have that visibility into where students are coming from and what the priorities might be for whether it's enforcement or infrastructure improvements, where are they coming from, where are the clusters, where are the crossings that are going to be most utilized. This is data that we use, and it's used not just in our programming, but it's used in grant applications and it's used in all kinds of, things. And that's part of what the county planning process will hopefully, result in, if again, we have a county project task force and we bring different district leaders together and we share, like, this is the kind of data we need. We're already doing that in Santa Rosa city schools, but it would be great to have that citywide and countywide.
Well, and we're sorry, but when we redraw the boundaries, those maps may need to be recreated. Exactly. Yeah.
We get them usually released by December, but
that'll also impact the partnership with the city, right? Where do we need certain components to allow our families to walk safely?
Right.
I am foreseeing some work that might need to be done at some of our major crossings.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
All right. Well, in the interest of time, it's 10:59. I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting is on June 12th, time TBD. I will consult with my district partners and also location TBD. We may just do a Zoom because it just seems like most people join us on Zoom, and that might just make the most sense.
Well, if you need another home base, we're happy to host again.
Okay, that we'll talk. We'll email and figure it out. All right, thank you everyone who attended, and we'll have a great day.